Welcome to Fazza Love Poems. Subscribe now. The world saw nothing, just another glance, just another pair of eyes, meeting in silence. But I saw everything. I saw my life unfolding in the quiet shimmer of her gaze. It wasn't just beauty I found there. It was memory. It was destiny. It was every breath I'd ever taken, finally finding its meaning. Her eyes were oceans, reflecting not light, but the truth I had always carried. They held the boy I once was, the man I became, and the soul I'm still becoming. In one glance, I saw everything I had searched for, and everything I would never stop longing for. The world passed by, blind to the miracle, but I stood still, lost, saved, reborn in her eyes. There was a quiet world hidden behind her lashes, a soft horizon that never ended. Each time she looked at me, it was as if time itself bowed in reverence. No words were needed, no explanations sought. Her eyes spoke in a language older than speech. They told me of beginnings that existed before birth, of endings that never end. I saw laughter there, the kind that lingers after storms, and sorrow, gentle and pure, like rain blessing the desert sand. She never said she loved me, but her eyes confessed it 1,000 times, and I, helpless under their spell, forgot the difference between seeing and believing, because when I looked into them, belief was sight. Sometimes the world turned loud, and I could no longer hear my own heartbeat. But her eyes, they silenced everything. In them, I found stillness. In them, I found home. They were the calm after prayer, the peace between storms. Even when I was surrounded by noise, I carried the reflection of her gaze, like armor. It reminded me that love doesn't always need sound. It can live quietly, in the look that never fades. Her eyes were the softest promise, and I lived every day as its fulfillment. Even when she looked away, the echo of her gaze remained, like sunlight that stays warm long after sunset. In her eyes, I saw the boy I once was, hopeful, fearless, waiting for something he could not name. She showed me my own heart, reflected back with tenderness. Her gaze didn't judge, it healed. It told me that I was not broken, only unfinished. And as I looked deeper, I saw our lives intertwined, long before meeting, like two stars destined to share one sky. Every glance between us felt like recognition, as if the universe whispered, "Here, you found her." I didn't see the world anymore. I saw her, and that was enough. Sometimes, I would catch her staring into distance, and I would wonder what world she was seeing. But then she would turn to me, and I would understand. Her eyes held everything I could not say, my fears, my prayers, my gratitude. They were like mirrors that showed not faces, but souls. And in that reflection, I saw the man I was meant to be. She became my horizon, my compass, my reason. One look, and eternity unfolded in a single heartbeat. The world saw nothing, but I saw forever looking right back at me. When she cried, her tears were not of sorrow. They were stars leaving her eyes, falling softly into the desert of my chest. And I gathered them like treasures, each one holding a universe of feeling. Even her sadness was beautiful, because it was honest. Her eyes carried both light and shadow, both hope and surrender. They taught me that love is not about perfection, but presence. When I looked into them, I saw not what I wanted, but what was real. And reality, through her gaze, was enough to last forever. Nights in the desert were cold, but her eyes kept me warm. They glowed like distant campfires, reflected in the sand, gentle, unending. Every time the moon rose, I thought of their shimmer. They reminded me that love is not always loud, not always near, but always alive. Even when she was far, her eyes followed me in memory, in dreams, in the mirror of my own soul. I would close my eyes and still see them, shining behind the darkness, telling me I was never alone. Years passed, and the world changed around me, but her eyes never did. They remained the same sky I first fell into, the same truth that anchored me through storms. I saw time age my reflection, but in her gaze, I was always young, the same soul who found forever in a single heartbeat. Sometimes I wonder if love is sight, or if sight is love, because in her eyes, they became the same thing. The world saw only eyes, but I saw eternity, waiting quietly in their depth. Now, even if the world forgets her, I will not, because her eyes are written in. When I breathe, I remember them. When I dream, I see them again. They live in every reflection, every pool of still water, every glint of starlight. She was not a moment. She was every lifetime. And though the world saw nothing, I saw everything. Because once you've looked into the eyes of your forever, you never see the world the same again. The world saw nothing. No one noticed how her eyes carried the silence of galaxies, how every flicker of light within them spoke the language of eternity. They called her ordinary, but he saw divinity woven gently behind her gaze, a story too sacred for words, too infinite for time. When she looked at him, it wasn't a moment. It was a lifetime, unfolding, a mirror of every dream he had ever whispered to the wind. Her eyes were oceans, and he drowned willingly in their calm and chaos. He found the reflection of his soul, waiting quietly for recognition, and he knew then he had never truly seen anything until he saw her. She didn't need to speak. Her silence filled the air, like music without sound, like prayer without words, and he listened with his heart to what the world could never hear. Each glance she gave was a doorway to forever, each blink a lifetime, closing softly, and he walked through them all, as if returning home, to a place he never left. Sometimes her eyes held pain, sometimes they carried peace, but even in their storms, he found calm, for chaos felt holy, and her stillness divine. She didn't love loud, but her gaze wrote poetry on his heart, and every word she never said became the reason he still breathes. He often wondered why no one else could see the galaxies spinning in her eyes, the constellations forming whenever she smiled softly, as if the stars themselves rose only for her. To him she was not a woman. She was a world, a reflection of everything he was too lost to find, and too alive to forget. The world saw nothing, but he saw everything, the past, the present, the eternity ahead, all hidden quietly in her glance. When she looked away, the earth dimmed a little, and when she looked back, his universe was whole again. He lived inside her eyes, and died every time she blinked, because sometimes a single look holds more life than 1,000 years of breathing. There were nights when he sat beneath the desert sky, and the stars felt dim beside her memory, because he could still see her eyes, even with his own closed. They followed him, in reflections of quiet lakes, in the shimmer of glass, in the silver curve of the moon, and every time light touched the earth, it reminded him of her gaze. He didn't need her near to feel her presence, for her eyes had already built a home inside his soul, a place he could visit whenever the world grew cold. They had shown him what forever looked like, not in promises, but in one look that stopped time itself. And even if lifetimes passed and names faded, he knew he would still remember that holy silence between them, when her eyes met his, and everything he ever was suddenly made sense.